people don't want to get angry. They want to just get by and be comfortable and shit. Nowadays, people are just worried about paying their fucking gas bill at the end of the month, you know. They don't want to get into the deeper, you know, facets of like just how intentional all this is to break people down. The same with politics, you know, identity politics, and, you know, left and right, fucking fuck you. It's all the fucking same.
Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 248 of Into the Necrosphere. Making his long overdue debut on Into the Necrosphere this week is the great and powerful Joseph Deegan of the bands Slidhr and Verminous Serpent. Slidhr, of course, responsible for one of my very favorite black metal records of 2023. That album was called White Hart. It was released on Deborah Morty Productions, and Joseph spoke about the album in detail. He also shared his very candid thoughts on why he believes that modern black metal has lost its way. We spoke about his life outside of music as a tattoo artist and much, much more. That conversation kicks off very shortly, but to get you fired up for this week's action from the frozen mountaintops of Norway, this is Engangshammer. Et Morgere Sted is the name of the song. That band is Engangshammer, and you can hear them featured alongside another Norwegian black metal band, Liktaren, on an upcoming split EP that will be dropping courtesy of Falter Records on November the 14th. As a matter of passing interest, Engangshammer features the bass guitar stylings of Swartalv of the band's Nocturnal Breed, Gehenna. He's also the lyricist for 1349, and perhaps most importantly, he is a high-ranking member. In fact, I would go as far as to say a lieutenant general in the Legion. So head over to the Falter Records website. I'll post the link to it in the description to the podcast. If you like what you heard, place a pre-order and let those bands know who sent you. If you are new to the podcast and you've not already done so, then leave me a 5-star rating on Spotify instantly. I put out the call last week. Many of you responded in fine style. I'm up to, at last count, 153. I need to hit that 200 mark. I need to beat Alan Averill, basically. I can't live with myself having less reviews than he has. So if you would do me a solid, if you do old Jackson a solid, head over to Spotify, leave me a 5-star review. If you listen to this podcast on Apple Music, leave me a 5-star review on there. It does just the same. The more of those we get, the bigger our guests get. And of course, I have had a track record of really big guests all year. Next week, I've got Adi of the band Suidakra joining me. I am going to save the energy required to correctly pronounce his name and surname in full for next week. But needless to say, I love Suidakra. I've wanted to have Adi on the podcast for a while, and our conversation really exceeded my expectations. So I'm very excited about sharing that one with you. And then, of course, the week after, we hit that grand old milestone, episode 250. Not quite ready to share the details of that one with you yet. Safe to say it's going to be fucking stacked. But if you keep your eyes peeled on the socials for something other than surgically enhanced breasts and scantily clad women, you might just see a couple of exciting announcements over the coming days. Of course, I am part of a group of extraordinary men, guys that are dedicated to destroying mediocrity wherever we find it, the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. We kick off every other Monday with another installment of Horrorwolf 666, hosted by Brandon Legion. Every Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on this very podcast into the Necrosphere. On a Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill deploys another episode of his long-running podcast, Everything Went Black. Every other Wednesday, we double up your pleasure when Cheyenne of the band Trivax gifts you another episode of Iblis Manifestations. On a Thursday, Sensei Mike Hill is back. He is joined by his co-conspirators, Sheriff Mike Scondado and Professor Jeff Kashid. One of the most unmissable podcasts of the week, Necromaniacs. They review new and old horror movies. Always the best way to get your weekend set up. And then also on a Thursday, we have the first of 2 installments of Soul Nox, a curated journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric by the sinister minister, the Reverend Carl Haikara. He also returns to the pulpit on a Sunday and turns that cross towards hell as he gives you the second installment of Soul Nox. My friends, when I am done talking to Joseph, do not go anywhere, because the fun will just be getting started as I head over to metalstorm.net, my usual port of call for my weekly news rant. This week, we are listening to new tracks by Suidakra, Misanthropy, Aara, Havok, Crippled Black Phoenix, and others. Before we get to that, though, sit back and enjoy as I welcome to the podcast for the first time, Joseph Deegan of Slidhr. I got back onto Whiteheart, and I was like, God damn, I must get this guy on. It's like way overdue. But before we talk about music, I did not realize until we actually connected on Facebook that your trade is tattooing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How long have you been into, or how long have you been at that racket?
I started around 21 years ago. So yeah, almost 22 years. But yeah, so a while. Mm.
And what got you down that road?
I actually always wanted to do it since I was a little kid. It was really hard to get into it at first, but yeah, it was a closed shop around Dublin, you know. So Yeah, I was I don't know, early 20s when I finally got into it. So, yeah.
Who were some of the people that that inspired you, or that I guess that piqued your interest in tattooing?
I don't know. It was totally different years ago. You know, I don't know. I just had a weird obsession with it. I was when I was about 11, I started buying magazines. You know, and there was a news agent in town, and they sold all the biker mags and shit. And yeah, they had tattoo magazines, and I started buying them then. So I was seeing lots of cool stuff from, like, you know, really, really, you know, influential tattooers, but I didn't know it at the time. But yeah, I've still got those magazines, you know, and they're still fucking great tattoos. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, my interest in it came from, you know, I always thought that getting a tattoo would be cool. And then when I was about 15 years old, a friend of mine traveled to New York and got a tattoo by Paul Booth. And when he came back and I saw what that looked like, my jaw just hit the floor. Because at that point, I mean, that was 1995. There was nobody doing... Well, but there was nobody doing anything like Paul. Nothing.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic. He was way ahead of his time. Yeah, he was killer. Yeah, but yeah, I think New York always had a good scene. Anyway, I think he was in New Jersey, but New York was great because it was illegal until I think '96 or something. And after they legalized it, yeah, it all went to shit. It's just saturated, and yeah, that's a different story.
I was going to ask you, I mean, you know, again, this is like, you know, you're talking about a time when it wasn't really the, you know, like now you have all these mainstream celebrities and mostly just normal people that run around with all sorts of tattoos, guys with full sleeves and stuff. That wasn't really commonplace amongst polite society, as you might refer to them.
Yeah. It was weird. Like, people who had sleeves years ago, back then, they were usually built up from smaller tattoos just over time. They just got a lot of tattoos. But yeah, I think that came late, mostly with the reality TV. That's when all that shit kicked off. So
like Miami Ink and LA Ink and all that sort of stuff.
People like fucking David Beckham and stuff as well. You know, he you know, had so many tattoos, and every fucking Joe Soap wanted to look like him. So yeah, you'd have people come right in off the street saying, "Yeah, I want to get a sleeve. What do you want? Clouds, stars? Yeah, where'd you get your fucking influence?"
So how much of that do you get? Like, I mean, because I know a couple of guys that are tattoo artists, and you know, some of them aren't in the fortunate position to be able to just do custom work. Like, I'm friends with Horsemen, for example. I don't know whether you know him, but he was one of Paul's apprentices. So, you know, with him, it's totally different. He's not going to do anything that he doesn't want to do. He did the piece that I've got on my right arm.
All right, cool.
But I mean, I also know guys that work in shops that have to take walk-ins, and you know, many of the, you know, for every maybe every one interesting design or you know, concept where they just kind of leave you be and let you do what you want, it's just stars, clouds, clocks, you know, other bullshit.
Yeah, well, you know, it depends on your angle with tattooing. I mean, when I got into it years ago, it was, you couldn't be Mr. Custom Guy. You know, you did what you did what people wanted, or else you didn't do any fucking tattoos. So, like, I have that kind of ethic with tattooing. I'll do anything because it's not my tattoo. It's a technical thing, you know. It's cool to do nice stuff, of course, but, you know, it's still, when you're like fucking 6 inches away from a tattoo and you're actually doing it, it doesn't really matter what it is, almost, you know. You just have to do a good job. So, yeah. And the world is flooded with, you know, Instagram fucking artists now. So everybody wants to have this niche thing, but, you know, there's only so much to go around, you know.
Do you feel like it's still as popular as it was as an art form, as something for people to get, versus, say, like the peak of Miami Ink, LA Ink, and all that sort of stuff?
It's probably more popular now.
Oh, really?
But there's more people doing it, you know, so it's super saturated. But everybody has tattoos. Like, it's kind of rare to know someone who doesn't have a tattoo. I mean, with the people I tattoo, shit, at the stage now, I'm tattooing their kids. I've tattooed their parents. So I'm doing generations of people, you know. I mean, like, you know, whatever. You know, a tattoo is what it is to the person who's wearing it, you know. So there's too much tattooing is done just for the photo now for Instagram. You know, cool guys are like, you know, talking people into getting shit that they don't want. And, you know, it can kind of be fucking intimidating, you know, if you go into a studio or whatever and, you know, you're kind of nervous or whatever. And, you know, some dude with this fucking swagger attitude is kind of pushing you into getting something you don't really want. It's kind of a shitty attitude to have, you know. So just do what you do, you know. Try and make them happy.
The best piece of tattoo advice I ever saw was actually a Henry Rollins article where he spoke about, he said, you know, he had got a bunch of small pieces, but he said the thing that he would tell anybody to do is have an idea of what you want overall and then go to the artist. And what I ended up doing was the first piece that I got was with Lior. And I just told him, do whatever you want. And, you know, I showed him a few things that I liked that he had done. And then, you know, we kind of got to talking, and about an hour later, he's like, all right, sit down. I've got an idea. And he started sketching it out of my arm, and the rest is history. I did the same thing with Dan Marshall on my other arm. And what I say to people now is, you know, they're probably about 15 years old, you know, either side, give or take. I still look at them in the mirror, and I absolutely fucking love them. I've never once looked at my tattoos and gone, oh, shit, I should never have gotten that. Because I kind of feel like because I told them to do what they wanted to do, they created something for me based on how they got to know me. Like, you know, Lior and I still speak. And so we actually spoke about that one night, and he's like, yeah, it's 100% what I did. You know, we were talking, I got a sense of what you were like as a person, and I did something that I thought would be personal to you. And I said,
yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
That's cool, but, you know, most people who are like, you know, you're the artist, do what you want, they don't fucking mean it. You know, they have something in their head that they can't articulate.
Yeah.
So you go in, you know, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're the artist, do what you want. And, you know, well, how about this, you know? Yeah, no, not really that. I wasn't thinking that. Oh, well, what do you want? You're the artist, do what you want. Well, what about this? No, and then they do have an idea, and then they'll tell you what their idea is. And that's fine, you know, but I think they want to seem like they're really cool, you know, and they're being super easy, but you shouldn't, you know. If you can be fussy with anything in life, it's a fucking tattoo, you know. So don't be afraid to be fussy.
The fussiness for me was in scouting who I wanted to get it done. So like
well,
I knew from seeing stuff they'd done, like they're going to do something, whatever it is, unless he decides to do some sort of demonic penis, it's gonna work.
Well, you know his stuff, you know, he's got pretty much, you know, when you look at his portfolio, it is, you know, you see what he does, and he does it well. So you knew more or less what you were going to get. Yeah, but if you look at my portfolio, I do all kinds of shit. So, you know, you're better off having an idea. It's horses for courses, you know.
I'm actually looking at it right now, and I really like your stuff. I was going to ask, like, what sort of pieces do you do where you kind of really feel like you're in your element? You know, like there's some, obviously there's some things that you'll do because somebody has asked for it.
Yeah.
But what are some of your favorites to do?
Skulls, always skulls. Cheesy bastard like that, yeah.
Yeah. I really like some of the Japanese style stuff you've done as well. I'm just looking now at a guy you did a back piece for him. Yeah, there's a couple of those you did, and I think like the bold style that you have with your line work, I think that really suits that style. Like, how did that? Where did you get your start? How did you like, you know? Obviously, again, if I use my own frame of reference, so Lior, I know, apprenticed with Paul.
Yeah.
You know, it was doing all sorts of, you know, menial bullshit to kind of get going. How did you pay your dues to get into this game?
I bought equipment and started fucking myself up. But it was really different back then, you know. It was in Dublin, there was like two families that kind of did tattooing, and if you didn't know them, you didn't get in.
Yeah.
So it was it was kind of different. You, of course, you're better off apprenticing, you know, because I did so many shit tattoos in the first couple of years. It's ridiculous, you know. And it's definitely a fast track if there's somebody knows what they're doing and will, you know, give you a hand. But like, yeah, I've had people help me along. So, yeah, I mean, I was fucking around for a couple of years. Then I got into a shop with a good tattooer, and I kind of learned. I don't know. I was getting a hang of certain things, but I didn't know how to function in a shop, in a working environment. And when I got into a shop, that was really what I needed to learn. And with that becomes like the more kind of methodical, side of things, where you learn what to do, when to do it, and it just becomes, kind of muscle memory. So yeah, that's just literally repetition. You have to just do it all the time. So I think that's what's lacking now. People are like, they want to be the artist first, but like, it's a technical thing. It's more of a craft than an art. You need to learn the craft before you go fucking get fancy, So once you get that down, then you can apply it to whatever you want to do. So, yeah.
Like, I mean, because I can't draw for shit, so I'm always astounded by guys that do this at a very high level. And I would put you in that camp as well. Like guys that do this at an extremely high level, knowing it's not a pencil or a pen that you're busy using. You got this weighted machine, and if you fuck up, it's actually much hard. You don't just get the old eraser out and say, let's just fix that mess that I did there.
Well, that's another difference, between years ago. It was, you bought machines and they didn't really work the way they needed to work. You needed to know how to tune a machine, but now you don't. You can go onto Amazon, you can buy one of these pen machines and they fucking work, You can spend €50 and it will work and it will tattoo. So shit tattoos are getting really solid, whereas they didn't used to be, and I do a lot of cover-ups. So years ago, it was like, yeah, if someone didn't know what they were doing, it was either faded or scarred up or whatever, but the tattoo wasn't really there anymore. Now, people are doing heavy, solid, dark tattoos off the bat because the equipment works, immediately. There's no learning curve with the mechanical side of things. And that took me years. I was rebuilding machines and cutting springs and doing all that kind of shit, Nobody knows how to do that anymore or cares, because you don't need to. It's just a different time. It's just, it's just progress, I suppose.
Now, I mean, is your preference for sticking with stuff that's more from the old school, or have you taken advantage of this new technology?
I've tried everything. I don't want to be like left behind. If there's some amazing new piece of equipment that can make me tattoo more efficiently, I'll use it. But I've tried all that shit, and I don't know. I can tattoo faster. I'm kind of known for being fast, and I can tattoo faster with coils, the old machines. So, but yeah, I mean, shit. There's great tattooers using all kinds of stuff. It doesn't really matter, It's just a means to an end.
So let's talk about music, and I'm sure you know this, but I'll just table this right from the get go in the interest of transparency. I always liked Slidhr, and then when they announced that you'd re-signed with Iblis Manifestations, you said one particular thing that I took great umbrage to, and I later commented, based on how much I enjoyed White Hart, I said, actually, frankly, if you put an album out that's this good, you can say whatever the fuck you want. But it's like you mentioned that you felt that black metal had turned into oversaturated pantomime.
Yeah.
So I was quite keen to get your perspective on this, because I mean you've obviously been in the scene for a while. You've played music at a very high level. You played with some absolute fucking badasses. So where did that thinking come from? Why do you think black metal's become oversaturated pantomime in 2023, 2024?
Just look around. Fucking go onto YouTube for 5 minutes. Jesus Christ, it's just, how many of these albums are you going to listen to in 20 or 30 years? Fucking none of them. None of them. All the really standout albums. Think about a scene, like I don't know, fucking second wave Norwegian shit, whatever, that was saturated in a way. Not like today, but it was. Fuck me, the quality from that scene was unbelievable. And, we're still listening to that shit today. And all the bands who come out now are, drawing from that as inspiration. there's very little of that now. It's all bullshit, you know, hooded fucking blood smeared fucking shit. It's just boring. It's all the same generic shit. Of course, there's some good stuff, but like, yeah, nothing's gonna stick. None of it. And I'm not like excluding myself from that either. I don't think, you know, I'll never have the impact of any of those fucking great bands, you know.
So where do you think it turned? Well, when do you think black metal kind of entered that pantomime territory from your perspective?
Internet, like everything else, it fucking ruined everything. I don't know. It's just become really achievable. You know, you look at, say, you listen to some raw, you know, band. It sounds achievable, you know. If you're listening to some fucking, you know, really tight techie band from the 80s, like some thrash metal band, or if you listen to even Morbid Angel or something, you know, it's fucking hard to play, you know, and not a lot of people can play like that. You listen to Dark Throne, you listen to Transylvanian Hunger, every 14-year-old is like, I can do that. You know, they can't. Not the way they did it, but it feels achievable. That's why they do it, you know. And it's a cool hobby for people, you know. They might fucking get a record out, make t-shirts, you know. Just, yeah. So that's it, you know. It's just, it's achievable. It's the kind of punk mentality, you know. But yeah, Jesus, it's just, there's just so much shit out there, you know. You go onto any of these kind of YouTube pages or whatever, you know. It's, fuck me, it's hard to fathom that there are so many bands. Like, I don't know, and it's all boring shit. Like almost all of it.
I will definitely concede there's a lot of bands, and I think there are certain strains of thinking within the scene that I don't like. I frankly don't think belong in the scene. I think the only real solution is some form of separate function. Like I just want to pretend that they don't exist. But I mean, there's a lot of great newer bands as well.
Of course, you know,
which I really enjoy. And again, I kind of put you guys in with that group. But where did the journey start for you? Like, how old were you when you first discovered heavier music?
Really, really young. Like the earliest memory is Iron Maiden when I was like 2. My uncle had the record at home, and I would fucking pore over the cover. And I'd look at everything, you know, I was always into art, even as a really small kid. So the cover drew me in first, you know. So I was looking at Eddie and all the devils and all the cool shit going on in the background of Number of the Beast. And shit, I could recite fucking, you know, the shit from the lyrics of Number of the Beast as a fucking little small kid, you know. So that had to be the start of it. But then I really got into it. Started growing my hair and shit when I was about 10. I don't know. Guns N' Roses were like the biggest band in the world back then. Like, whatever, 1991 or, you know, they were fucking huge. So I got into them and, yeah, still like Iron Maiden, shit like that, you know. And then it just went from there, you know. You're never happy. You want to get heavier, more extreme, faster. It just keeps going. But the black metal thing, I guess... You know, I was lucky. There was a radio show in Ireland on our national broadcaster, and it was called the Metal Show. But they had a top 10 from the Sound Cellar. Sound Cellar was a really old like record store in Dublin, and weirdly they sell like they always had like black metal, death metal, you know, and they had a top 10 every week. They'd send in a top 10, and it was all fucking really cool shit. Like that's, I think it was 11 when I heard Beherit for the first time on that, you know. When you hear something like that, it's like the most evil fucking shit you've ever heard, you know. So it makes an impression on you. So that was a big influence. So I started listening to some of that stuff, you know, just taping it off the radio. Then you meet the older boys around who see you wearing a fucking cut-off denim jacket with patches, and they're like, hey, look at this fucking kid, you know? And then they'll give you tapes. And so I got a lot of stuff from that. And even some of those older guys would like bring me to concerts and stuff, you know. So shit, I saw Slayer when I was like 11 or 12 or something like that.
I was going to ask, who was the first band that you saw?
First band I used to go to, there was like underage local gigs in town. But the first bigger one was probably 9 Inch Nails, actually. I went with my friend and his older brother on the Downward Spiral tour.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was in a fucking really small venue. So probably that. And then shortly after, Megadeth on Euthanasia. And then probably Slayer on Divine Intervention. So, yeah, I'd go to whatever, if I could find someone to take me to a gig as, so young, I'd go to it. Yeah. I'd do, yeah, I was just obsessed.
I don't know if it was the same for you, but because it sounds like we're roughly the same age. I remember when I first heard death metal and black metal, like the first couple of tastes at that age, I didn't quite know what to make of it. Like I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. I would, I remember a guy gave me a copy of Legion, and I remember putting it on thinking, fuck it, this is awful. And then I put it away, and then it kind of sticks with you, and you go, just you keep wanting to go back to it, but you don't know why, because your part of you thinks is there's no point in listening to it, but part of you is just curious to hear a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, there were these gateway bands, that bridge the gap between, even Metallica, older Metallica. I mean, when I got Ride the Lightning, it was like, that was super extreme to me, fucking hear this gay little acoustic intro, and then it's like fight fire with fire. It's like, what the fuck is that, And then you got Slayer, who are, when you look back at Slayer, like it still fucking stands the test of time. It's fucking dark, evil shit. It's really cool, So it's easy to get into Slayer from like Metallica or whatever, and then you're into Slayer, you're not that far from, Morbid Angel or, whatever. Like you say, Deicide, they were, the bands that you'd see people wearing extreme shorts, even Cannibal Corpse, it was the t-shirts you'd see and be like, oh, fuck, look at that shit, And then you wanted to hear the band, but yeah, something like Cannibal Corpse was almost like fucking a parody at this stage, it's every cliche in death metal, but at the time it wasn't too much like that, well, not that way.
Oh, dude, I remember when Tomb of the Mutilated and The Bleeding came out. I mean, both albums made such a massive impact, and both albums genuinely they felt dangerous. I remember when you heard it the first time, it felt like you were listening to something that you absolutely shouldn't, or that the cops could bust your door in at any point and arrest you because you were listening to something completely forbidden.
Well, they banned their fucking covers and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that was more good publicity for them.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, I know what you mean. It is. Well, back then anyway, it was definitely like an acquired taste. You couldn't just go onto the internet or whatever and so I'm going to check out this band today. You got what you could when you could. You got snippets of stuff like that. I was taping stuff off a fucking radio show. So I'd have one song maybe, of Emperor. And it was like, it's kind of weird, and you keep listening to it because you don't have a whole lot else. So then it's no longer an acquired taste.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, when you acquire the taste, it kind of becomes an obsession very, very quickly.
Big time. Yeah. Because it's so unusual. It's so odd, It's not something you're seeing every day, Especially the black metal stuff. When that came in, onto the radar, it was like, yeah, I mean, one of the earlier bands I guess I saw was like Immortal, which, those videos are fucking ridiculous, stupid. But if you hear the music first, it would be cooler, I think. But yeah, it just wasn't so accessible. It wasn't as easy to find it, So yeah.
Well,
also the thrill of the hunt,
I remember hearing Battles in the North for the first time, and I mean that there was no fucking around on that record. Like it didn't feel like a joke to me at all. I mean, I know exactly what you mean when you see Blasher. You see the music video, and they're out, up on the mountain, fucking throwing their moves and doing all their antics.
Yeah.
It's pretty cartoonish, but good God, when you hear the song Battles in the North, I mean, if you know every single song on that record, it's just the most violent, punishing, crazy shit that I had heard up until that point. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Can you remember whether there was?
I mean, even Burzum. You listen to Burzum,
I think
our fucking stupid the first time you hear them.
Yeah. I think we went out of sync there for a second, by the way. So if I spoke over you, my apologies. Right. But sorry, you were talking about Burzum?
No worries. Yeah, I mean, Burzum, I fucking love Burzum, but like the first time I heard it, I thought the vocals were ridiculous, those shrieks. But I was really, really, really young, hadn't heard anything like that. So then you realize it's actually kind of cool,
Did you, when you first heard Burzum, was that pre or post Varg's incarceration?
It was. I definitely saw that stuff in Kerrang while it was going on, all the fucking church burning stuff. But I didn't hear them until a couple of years later because it was just harder to get the albums when I was that young and stuff. So he was definitely infamous. He was always infamous for one thing or another. But maybe it was around the time he got locked up. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I've always wondered whether or not, because I remember hearing Philosophem for the first time and hearing Dunkelheit, and it was one of the most unnerving tracks I'd ever heard in my entire life. Yeah. But I do sometimes wonder, like, was this because I'd seen the Kerrang article, I knew about Burzum? Was it because I knew about the backstory, and that's what kind of added to it? And it was an incredible fucking experience. Like I remember very distinctly where I was hearing it, so it clearly left an impression. Yeah, but I've always wondered whether or not the backstory played a role in how I experienced that. And sometimes I think, I wonder whether the craziness and the drama, whether that doesn't kind of somehow add to the magic of how people experience and think about the second wave of Norwegian black metal.
I think it does. Well, they fucking mean it anyway. It's not just some LARPer, who's going to their fucking, I don't know, tech job or whatever on the weekdays, and they meant it, But who knows? It was just a different time, all this kind of the rumor mill, and you'd pick up snippets of like information, and fucking half of it was bullshit, and you didn't know what was real and what wasn't. But again, it was just more interesting, finding stuff out like that. It wasn't all on tap like it is now. Yeah.
Well, that's I can definitely relate to that, because as I've mentioned on the show before, growing up in South Africa in the early days, none of this music was accessible. You certainly couldn't find it anywhere where I grew up, and you had to get everything out of a catalog. You had to work to get everything, and because you had to work for it, you attached a great deal of value to it. Like if I got a CD, that was more priceless to me than several of the neighbors' lives. So it's like you'd sit poring over the cover, poring over the lyrics, and each and every one of those seminal records from that era, I remember very distinctly where I was when I heard it the first time, my thoughts during it the first time. And I will absolutely agree with you. In modern age, there's so much of it, and it's so easily accessible, that has taken away from the magic of it a little bit. And it's a shame to me that the newer generation is never going to learn. They'll never experience that.
Yeah, but it's shit, because there's so much is lost. So many good bands are lost in the absolute sea of shit, because there's some really good shit out there, but it doesn't get the attention it deserves, just because there's just so much, Well,
I would argue you are on a label that is, in terms of pure quality, the volume of quality releases that Deborah Morty put out is, I mean, their batting average, if you want to use that analogy, is probably the highest of just about any label in the underground, as far as I'm concerned.
Sure. Yeah.
And you've been working with them for quite a while now, because you were Deluge came out on Deborah Morty as well, and that was back in 2013.
Deborah Morty actually released our demo in like 2006.
Oh shit!
Yeah. I've known Phil for fucking years. Yeah. So that was the start. He was the first person to contact me about Slidhr. He heard a track online somewhere and asked to release the demo. So that was the album. We intended to put it out way sooner, but it just didn't happen for whatever reason. We did a couple of like EPs or whatever, but the first full length didn't come out till like 2012, something like
13.
13, yeah. It was recorded in 2012, yeah. We've known them for a long time, and it's definitely a quality label, yeah.
It's not commonplace now, and it definitely wasn't commonplace then that somebody would be willing to put your demo out either. So that must have come as a bit of a surprise.
It kind of was. Someone, Deborah Morty was a way smaller label back then, and people would release demos. It was just cassettes. So it was cool to put it out. He put out, I can't remember how many, just a couple of hundred, maybe 300.
I'm about to say, according to Metal Archives, it's 300, and according to Metal Archives, your demo was the 14th release that they put out.
Right, yeah. It was that, and what else came out? It was Rebirth of Nefast, and there was another tape at the same time. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, I think that was maybe a new-ish thing for him. I don't know if he'd put too many tapes out before, but it was a relatively new label at the time.
What are your thoughts on how that label has grown and evolved? And I mean, I think they've built up and cultivated a very formidable reputation and a very enviable one. I think there's a degree of trust in the name now, to where a lot of people, myself included, if their label is attached to anything, I'm instantly interested in hearing it.
Yeah, there's a few labels like that. Yeah. I mean, Deborah Morty has, like, from Bloodhouse North to Archgoat and fucking just so much different stuff. I mean, he releases what he wants to release, and that's, commendable. He doesn't give a shit if it's like super raw or if it's something more, whatever, modern or, industrial kind of tinged or whatever. Yeah, so it's good that he puts out what he wants and doesn't strictly adhere to like some aesthetic that he knows a certain, group will lap up. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah. It's good. There are a bunch of labels like that. Vaughn was one of them. There's a few labels that you can kind of trust, and you'll be. It's almost like when you go to a festival or something, and it's like you're checking out bands because it's a good festival, so they're going to be decent bands. It's the same with labels,
Do you still go to a lot of festivals? Do you?
No.
You go to a lot of shows?
No, very few. I once a year I go to Funkenflug or House of the Holy in Austria. That's really, really cool. I've been going there for a few years. That's the only one I'll regularly go to.
What made you decide to scale back on that?
It's getting old. Can't be bothered.
Yeah. It's weird though. It's interesting going to shows and seeing the audience generally. My observation, at least, I get bands on that go, a lot of our fans are young.
Yeah,
I don't really see it. I was watching
no, it's an aging crowd. It's definitely an aging crowd,
without a doubt. I was watching a clip on YouTube the other day of Slayer playing at Aftershock. And, once in a while I'll go down these rabbit holes where I'll check out, 1983 Slayer playing live or Morbid Angel playing live in 1989. And the level of energy, how fucking insane that crowd would go. Then you look at Aftershock 2024, there's a couple of heads bobbing, hand in the air, but you're like, Jesus Christ, if this was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and you were at a Slayer show and you did that, you'd probably get beaten up. You couldn't just stand around like that.
Yeah, when I went to see Slayer in the 90s or whatever, the guy who brought me, he was like 17 or something, he was this like metal kid from up the road, and he took me along and he was like, now stay at the back or around the sides, don't go into the middle.
Yeah.
And like I was fucking tiny, I was like 11 years old or whatever, and like some like older guy, who was like an old man to me at the time, but he was probably about 25, he picked me up and put me on his shoulder so I could see over everybody, and it was like, it was fucking chaos. Yeah. Any gigs like that were like fucking violent,
big time.
They're not like that anymore. Nowhere. No. I mean, for good or bad, I don't care, but yeah, it's definitely an older crowd, and I think the younger crowd who are there are definitely not as manic.
They're not as appreciative of the fact that that they're so safe and so protected.
Yeah, well,
because they don't know the alternative.
Yeah. Oh well, old man shouts at cloud. That's the way of the world these days.
Yeah. So White Hart brought that out in 2023. I know you recorded that in like 2018, or at least wrote that in 2018, 2019. Yeah. What was the delay between putting? I mean, that was 11 years after Deluge, and I know you did a couple of one-offs and splits and stuff in between. But
we had an album. We had an album in 2000. When did it come out? 18.
Actually, yes, you are correct. Sorry.
Yeah, that came out.
The Futile Fires of Man.
Yes. That came out 2018, but we didn't really do anything. I think we played 2 gigs or something. We did like 2 festivals, and we didn't tour or anything like that. And then all the fucking lockdown shit happened. So yeah, I mean, I'd written that album actually before all that. Most of it was written in 2019, and I wrote the lyrics then later. But musically, it was more or less ready to go. So. Yeah, Bjarni recorded the drums when he could, because I think they had a more lenient kind of lockdown up there than we did in Ireland. So he was able to get into a studio to record, and I did the rest here. And Stefan, the new bass player, he had actually joined 2019. Gadi, the old guy, left, and he offered his services. So I was like, yeah, killer, let's fucking do it. So we had it all agreed. It was more or less ready to go. And then, I recorded it in, I don't know, those 3 years are a fucking blur for me now. But it was finished like 2 years ago or whatever, year and a half maybe. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned the lyrics being done after the recording. I assume you were doing those lyrics during lockdown, because having read them, there's 2 things that stand out for me about them. One, there's obviously a huge amount of thought that's gone into them. Like they're very eloquently written. They're not. I'm quite particular about the type of lyrics that I like. I don't like it when lyrics sound like It's hard to pinpoint. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but lyrics that sound like they were written by a child, I can't stand. If it sounds like some teenage, 13-year-old boy, juvenile rubbish, I can't deal with that. But this is really poetically written, eloquently written. But it also has the other quality that I really like, which is they're quite abstract. So you can impose your own view onto them. But as I was reading them, really from the Temple Armory onwards, I'm like, there's part of me that can see that somebody was writing this during lockdown when they were pretty pissed off with the whole situation.
Sure,
and there's at least some degree of reflection on that. Am I just your snigger there suggests that I'm not entirely off base?
Yeah, I mean, there are moments in those lyrics that are a little less obscure than they maybe should be.
How dare you?
Yeah. No, it was I was fucking angry writing those lyrics, yeah. And Yeah, I think some people have commented on also the vocal performance. I sound more pissed off because I fucking was. Yeah. If you've read any interviews with me from that time, you know where I stand and all that shit. Anyway, so yeah, it was a scathing fucking view of
A scathing
everything that
rebuke.
went on. Yeah, but not just. You know, it wasn't as black and white as like I'm gonna write an album about what's going on right now. It wasn't like that. It was more a general overall. But there were some moments where it was this is about you folks. Yeah.
The opening lines to the Temple Armory, though, they poisoned the spirit and poisoned the sea, they poisoned the flesh and poisoned the field. Like, where did you get that from? Because is that from something specific, or did you write that?
I wrote that. Yeah, it's about everything. It's about the water you drink, the air you breathe, the food you eat. Everything is fucking poisoned. Everything you read, all the media. Everything has an agenda. Education, they'll poison every fucking facet of your life, your soul, your intellect, everything. So yeah, I wanted to try and summarize it in one verse, get it all in there. And yeah, that's what I came up with. And yeah, it's fucking, yeah, everything you see these days is a lie, or is yeah, I don't know. It's fucking, yeah, we're being poisoned left, right, and center in every possible way.
And we're being poisoned, and we also, to your point around everything that you see being a lie, we don't know what to believe anymore, because everything that's presented to us is presented with a bias of some sort.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so the only thing you can go by, at least as far as I'm concerned, the only thing you can go by are outcomes. And right now, the outcome from the vast majority of everybody in power is mostly pretty terrible. And if people if people broke it down to basic principles of government is meant to be by the people, for the people in a democracy, and the public coffer is money you and I give the government to take care of our basic needs. It's not meant to be for whatever frivolous shit they spend it on. If you start to break it down by those principles, I think if people were educated on those principles, they'd be a lot angrier than they are today.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? People don't want to get angry. They want to just get by and be comfortable and shit. Nowadays, people are just worried about paying their fucking gas bill at the end of the month, you know? They don't want to get into the deeper, facets of, like, just how intentional all this is to break people down. The same with politics, identity politics, and, left and right, fucking fuck you. It's all the fucking same. They're all fucking the Pied Piper, fucking, he's the cool guy, yeah, he's got all the answers, you fucking bullshit. They're all singing from the same hymn sheet. Yeah, and all, the chaos and the shit state of the world now is completely intentional. Yeah, that's, it's easy to control people when they're fighting each other,
If you think about a place like, Ireland has always been surprising for me. If you think about the United Kingdom and you think about, Wales, you kind of expect the liberalism there. Scotland they're off the rails. The UK kind of does, they don't know what they want. But Ireland was always the one enclave I thought that would put up more of a fight, would be a bit more rebellious.
Yeah,
and I'm very surprised that they seem to have buckled the way that they've done. And it's not a slight on the Irish. It's this is a mind virus that stretches across the entire Isle. But it's there was part of me that was cheering the Irish on, like, at least you guys could stand up for us.
Yeah, it's a hard one, because if you actually ask the average person on the street their opinion on all these big polarizing issues today, it's not what the media will portray. Surprise, surprise. We have some obscene amount of NGOs to push narratives, whatever the government wants, this fucking month. They spend billions and billions on these pieces of shit to try and sway or try and, mislead what is actually public opinion. But again, it goes back to it. We're all poisoned with fucking lies, bullshit. People are fucking really pissed off here at the moment, though. Whatever about the lockdown stuff, people were a bit too placid. But these days, with the crazy immigration shit that's going on, people are pissed off, and it's volatile, to say the least. Yeah.
And my observation is people are getting angrier, and they're getting more resentful about the fact that they no longer feel empowered to voice legitimate opinions, legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
We're not talking about someone on the lunatic fringe, yes, someone who's some extremist right winger, or whatever the case may be. These people are voicing concerns to a government that they pay for to stay in power, and they're being swatted down. And
that's the problem, It's sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I think the governments have gotten to, or they're running very dangerously close to overplaying their hands, and people going, we're not going to put up with this shit anymore.
Well, that's the thing, as everyone realizes these days, the left, or who calls themselves the left, they've pushed the whole diagram so far across that anyone who was anyway centrist is now far right.
Yeah,
by their standards, And, it's just regular people who are like, my kids can't see a dentist, or I can't get a doctor's appointment for fucking 2 months, Maybe don't move 1,000 North African dudes into a warehouse up the street, We don't have the resources for it. And then it's like, oh, you're a fucking far-right fascist. It's ridiculous, It's just a whole smear campaign on regular people. I don't give a shit either way about that kind of stuff, but like, yeah, you can only piss people off so much before they really boil over,
Well, as I said earlier, it all manifests. All these policies, they manifest in outcomes, right? And Dublin, I know, has it particularly bad because there's a friend of mine who lives there who was telling me that it was. I don't know if it's still the case, but she said the supply of rental homes was so bad at one point that people would be queuing down the block at estate agents first thing in the morning just to get dibs on whatever bullshit was being put up for rent.
Oh, you'll see that all the time. If there's a house in any neighborhood, you'll know when it's going up for rent because there's queues down the street. No joke, of a couple of hundred people, and they're not cheap either. They're really, really fucking expensive. So. Yeah, and then we got vulture funds buying up everything and, just ripping people off. So it's a shit sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird time.
So how do you remain sane during all of this? Because I've had a similar conversation with Alan, and we kind of both, we came at it from a slightly different perspective. We were like, okay, how do you anticipate and manage this, or manage what we think is coming? But I think it's also important to kind of keep a cool head and not just completely and utterly despair, because you still have your own life to live as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't know. I'm too, again, like most people, I'm just getting on with life. I'm working all the time. I walk my dogs. I stay the fuck away from people. I'm not a social person, so yeah. There's a few people I'll socialize with, and I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I mean, the very rare occasions I venture into like the city center, it's just a fucking cesspit. It's an absolute toilet. It's shit. Again, talk about getting old. 20 years ago, yeah, you'd get the shit kicked out of you for having long hair by some, idiots or whatever. These days, fuck, man, it's really sinister. It's weird, and I wouldn't want to be a kid these days, So, yeah, I mean, if I had kids or whatever, I'd be a lot more probably vocal and more active in trying to do something about society here today. But fuck, the country we're leaving for the next generation is it's a dark fucking place.
Yeah, and you don't know at what point, because the world goes through cycles, and the cycle typically gets reset at some point, but it almost always gets reset with war. That's my big fear. I've got a friend who's, the guy has got a fucking Rain Man like ability to analyze numbers, analyze data, tell you what's coming. And he said to me for the last 15 years, he said the next major war will kick off in Europe. The flashpoint is Europe.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you've got like governments. I mean, we're supposed to be a neutral country, and the shit that our politicians come out with is anything but neutral. The way they've poked the Russian bear with the whole Ukraine kind of debacle. And I'm not saying I'm like anti-fucking Ukraine, pro-Russia, and far from it. But
I'm anti Russian missiles being launched at my house. I'm definitely anti that.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's what you're driving at. Because I've looked at the same thing. I'm like, you guys realize in terms of military force, and I want to say you guys. I'm talking about the UK government. Like in terms of military power, this country is a fucking joke. So if you were to get embroiled in a full-scale conflict, you best pray that there's somebody in the White House that's willing to very actively bail you out, because we will not last long.
Yeah, well, that's it, And I think that's what they're banking on. And yeah, I don't know. I think every generation goes through this shit. But I don't know. It feels more real than ever now. Like it's a real possibility. Maybe it won't.
Like the meteor passes by the Earth, and it's a little closer every time. It feels uncomfortably close this time around.
Yeah. I mean, as long as I can remember, there've always been like, these kind of situations, global politics, but they're getting closer and closer and closer, and more real. And I mean, shit. Just look at the knock-on effect of the Ukraine thing. That's not that far away, the grand scheme of things. What happens if it kicks off with Taiwan? That's also gonna create massive tensions. I don't know, man. Fucking these people playing the war games. Yeah, they'll fuck us all up. But
well, if things kick off with Taiwan, I don't actually think most people realize how unbelievably different and significantly worse off we will all be. I say unbelievably different. I mean, unbelievably different our lives will be, and we will all be hurting. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
You take away
whether that's real or not. I mean, it will be used as an excuse to for like what they did with Ukraine. Now everything we buy is fucking way more expensive these days. Your groceries, your heating bills, electricity, everything is so much more expensive. And Ukraine was made the fall guy for that shit. It's like, oh well, it's Russia and Ukraine. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Oh well, I guess nothing we can do about it. Yeah, it's nothing to do with that. It's all fucking. And if something kicked off with China and Taiwan, fuck, everything we fucking buy is Chinese these days, for fuck's sake.
Well, the big one in China is semiconductors. So Taiwan Semiconductor produces 82% of the world's semiconductors in Taiwan. Yeah. If they go, every single piece of electronics that we have becomes exponentially more expensive, which is why you need to invest in, as a top tip for everyone listening, invest in Intel shares, because they're the only ones building significant production capability outside of Taiwan.
There you go. Insider trading.
So there you go. I'm giving people a glimmer of hope, in addition to all the sadness and fucking despair that we're spreading now. What on a positive note, because I'm a big dog lover. What kind of dogs do you have?
I've got a Jack Russell and 2 German Shepherds.
Okay, all right. German Shepherds for protection, Jack Russell for entertainment.
Yeah, well, of course he's the boss, But they're just rescue dogs. I got whatever dogs came to me. I found them, So it's just a coincidence that I ended up with 2 German Shepherds. Yeah.
And the other thing that I was very keen to talk to you about, Verminous Serpent. I absolutely loved the Malign Covenant. But I was curious to know what from your point of view, the recording process for that, because my understanding was you guys went in, recorded everything live, did two takes of each song, picked the best one, and that was it.
We actually didn't do 2 takes. That was the plan, but we were just like, we started recording the whole thing again, and it was like, the first one was fine. Why are we bothering with this? So we stopped. So so we just did it once. We were pretty well rehearsed going in, I think, because again, we'd been playing for fucking a year during lockdown or something. So, Alan, obviously, all of his travel plans were put on hold. He couldn't play abroad and all that stuff. So he was all of a sudden just stuck here with nothing to do. And Matt, the drummer, as well. So it was like it was the perfect time to do it. So we were well rehearsed. We just went in, recorded it. And we recorded the vocals separately and maybe some like overdubs here and there, but more or less it was just 3 of us standing in a room playing really fucking loud.
And that was that the first time you had recorded a record like that?
No. I've been playing in bands for a fucking long time. So yeah, I've been playing since before computers were even used to record. So that's how it was done before in the 90s. So it was more harking back to that. But it was good fun, to do it now when I feel, I don't know. I think we did something special. We caught some cool vibes on that one. So
I was going to say, I mean, but based on the response to the Malign Covenant, do you think there would ever be a chance of a sequel?
Yeah, maybe. We've talked about it. We've even written some bits here and there, but nothing. There's nothing solid yet. But I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. I don't think any of us are opposed to it. So yeah, maybe we will.
What about Slidhr? I know you're going to be playing a live show relatively soon.
Yeah, like this week. Yeah, this week.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm flying off to Germany in Wednesday, day after tomorrow. Going to rehearse for a couple of days, and then we go to Oberhausen to play the gig. Yeah.
And plans to do anything else beyond that?
No, nothing solid yet. It's a big headache for us to play live these days. Before, all the lineup was mostly based in Iceland, besides me, so they could just rehearse without me and stuff, and then we'd meet up and play wherever. But now it's kind of awkward because we're in 3 different countries. 2 of the guys are German, 1 is in Iceland, I'm in Ireland. So we just need to meet up, go through stuff before the gig. And I mean, besides that, we all know what we're doing, we're fine. But it's just awkward to, go to some country that is, not one of our bases and have to play just completely cold. So I don't know. Maybe we're 20 years old next year, so I don't know. Maybe we should do something for that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But it might be an idea. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, sir, thank you so much for your time. I have greatly enjoyed this conversation, and looking forward to whatever it is that you do next, whether that's Vermin Serpent, more Slidhr. Like I said, really, really love that last Slidhr record. And I think, I think it's certainly Deluge was the one I was most familiar with prior to that record. I think it was a big step up from that. And like I said, very much looking forward to whatever it is that you do next.
Good shit. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man. That was Joseph Deegan rasping his way through a track called Trench Offering. It is to be found on the most recent Slidhr record, Hart, and that, of course, was released by Deborah Morty Productions last year. One of my favorite albums of 2023, and if you haven't checked it out yet, I'll post a link to their Bandcamp in the description to the podcast, so head over there, listen to it if you have not yet done so. If you buy yourself anything by Slidhr, you let Joseph and the lads know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. Right before we get to the weekly news rant, we're going to have us another little musical interlude. Many of you recommended I check out a band called Adorior. They hail from the mean streets of London, England. They have just put out their third record, Bleed on My Teeth, on Dark Descent Records. It turns out that your recommendation landed on fertile soil. I absolutely love this. I spoke about favorite albums of 2023. This is almost certainly on the shortlist for the top 30 of 2024. And this is a track called Ophidian Strike.
Reptiles back with a cold light. With a flame for food.
The Legion recommended, I listened, and I absolutely loved. That was Adorior off their third album, Bleed on My Teeth, available right now on Dark Descent Records. The song is Ophidian Strike, and it is a surefire contender for my Best of 2024 shortlist. The Best of 2024 list, which I will be formally unveiling early next year. It'll be the usual 3-episode series, loads of guests, pomp and pageantry, because I actually take that list seriously, unlike a lot of the clickbait trash that'll be releasing their best of lists probably within the next week or two. I actually give it a full calendar year so that every band has the opportunity to be on the most famed list in the underground of them all. Right now, my friends, if you wept alongside Jennifer Lopez as she told you who to vote for, then it's time for you to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
First headline grabbing my attention, Suidakra are streaming a brand new track called Unraveling Destinies. It says here, ahead of this Friday's official release of their new studio record, Darkra Nokrad, German's Suidakra premiere a music video for the last single, Unraveling Destinies. I actually had to tilt my head to read that album title, and I suspect I may have mispronounced it, but it is almost certainly the stupidest album title that I've seen in a very long time. That being said, Suidakra have had their moments over the course of a 30-year career. They've been around for a very long time. The last record of theirs that I properly paid attention to came out in 2005 or 2006. It was called Caledonia, and that wasn't bad. I believe it's relatively well-reviewed too. But, again, they're one of those bands that, never really seemed to be able to break out above the very small bubble of people for whom I'm sure their every note played was a revelation. That being said, let's check in and see what they sound like in 2024. All right, I'll pause there. There's a couple of things that this song has going for it, most notably, in my opinion, a very robust production. It's got, a bold sound coming through on these Focal cans. Drum sound in particular sounds very, very good. Some people may argue it sounds quite clinical and a bit overly digital, but I think overall the sound to me is pretty decent. Guitar sound is very heavy. Generally speaking, the overall mix packs a lot of punch. I think there's a sequence around the 1 minute mark where the song seems to get a little more venomous, and that's where my interest peaks a little. But then those annoying fucking piss-ant melodic lines, melodic licks come in, and they kind of just ruin everything. And that's sort of the story of the song. The opening riff, the melodic riff, is incredibly trite. It's something that you will have heard a myriad bands out of Sweden and Germany do previously. Not original by any stretch of the imagination. I feel like the vocals sound strained and forced. So again, it may have its place, it may have its audience. That audience does not include me. I'm going to be curious to go back actually to Caledonia now and re-listen to that record. I had a gander on Metal Archive, and the average review there, or the average rating, is 93%. So it did very well. They've gone all the way down to 34%. As a matter of fact, I take that back. 27% on Kimbrick Yarns that came out in 2018. But you know, let's give them kudos. I mentioned earlier they've been around for 30 years. They clearly enjoy what they do, and there is clearly an audience for this. You know, to last for 30 years in a band is, that takes some doing. Just having a gander now at the lineup, it does seem like they've had quite a lot of changes as well. The main person who's been consistent has been the vocalist. But it gets a 5 out of 10 in my view, which, you know, is not a complete write-off, but is certainly not going to be it's certainly not going to be stopping me in my tracks anytime soon. Okay, let's move on. Gorgon unleash Troops of the Fallen track. It says here, in the wake of their upcoming 7th LP, For Those Who Stay, set for international release on November the 29th, Gorgon offer in listening another new track in preview called Troops of the Fallen. Well, so first thing to get out of the way, this is a lot better than Suidakra. You know, let's just all agree on that. Gorgon is another band who, like Suidakra, or I would say in this case potentially a project, because they only, even though there's multiple people on that music video, they only list one member as the band effectively on Metal Archives. So I'm not familiar with Gorgon. I don't know whether or not it's a one-man project and he just assembles a bunch of hired guns when he goes to the studio. But the gist of what I was about to say is Gorgon have been around for a while. Formed in 1991, it says here. This is going to be their 7th studio album, as it says there. They had a bit of a break between 2000 and 2019, and they've been relatively prolific since then. 3 albums, including this new one. The new one will be called For Those Who Stay. So anyway, better than Suidakra doesn't necessarily mean it's that great. There's nothing that I hate about this per se, but it's not bringing anything new to the table. It's a style of black metal that I've heard done many times before by many bands, and I've heard it executed in a way that is much more appealing to me than what I'm hearing here. I think the best thing that they've got going for them is the fact that they're on Osmos Productions and thus are label mates to Trivax. Conan will enter the studio later this month. At the end of November, the 3-piece of John Davis, David Riley, and Johnny King will hit up Fold Studios to begin the recording process with Chris Fielding for their next full-length offering. Conan will put out their new album through Heavy Psych Sounds. I had John Davis of Conan on the podcast back on, I think, episode 207. Very nice guy. You will not believe the sheer number of people who told me that he looks like Jonathan Davis from Korn. And he kind of does, in fairness. He looks like the scraggly older brother. But I like Conan very much, and I thought John was a great guy. So hopefully when that new album comes out, we can have him on the podcast. Moving on to some more music, Misanthropy putting out a new track called Of Sulking and the Wrathful, which sounds like a song written about a petulant toddler. A brand new song by the US tech death band Misanthropy has been unleashed. Check out Of Sulking and the Wrathful, which is part of their upcoming The Ever-Crushing Weight of Stagnance LP. Song is available via YouTube player down below. This is being released on Transcending Obscurity, so let's give it a quick listen. Just hang fire there for a second. I'm actually quite liking what I'm hearing so far. There's something about the vocalist that reminds me a little of Damien Lesky of Broken Hope, latter-day Broken Hope. I'm a big fan of Damien Lesky, so I say that in a complimentary fashion. Interesting as well that Misanthropy are from Chicago, according to Metal Archives, which means they potentially live in Damien's backyard, so to speak. I'm also having a quick scan across their previous records, so they seem to have taken a much more serious turn over the course of their career, because their first record, entitled Methods of Execution, and again, I could stand corrected here because sometimes Metal Archive seems to. Well, I don't. Again, even year I might be wrong. I don't know whether this is the same band, is what I'm getting at. Sometimes it feels to me when I look at Metal Archives like it connects two bands that aren't necessarily the same band. I don't know how it works. I don't know whether you go in as a band and you maintain your own profile in there, or what the story is. But either way, if we follow the Metal Archives timeline, it seems that Misanthropy put out their first record, Methods of Execution, back in 2015, and that wasn't a particularly serious record if I judge by song titles like Reefer Shark and Bong Patrol. But they then seem to have had a change of heart, put out Abhorrent Metamorphosis in 2018, and now in 2024 we find The Ever-Crushing Weight of Stagnance. But yeah, like I said, I like what I'm hearing so far. I like those little melodic touches. They remind me a bit of Job for a Cowboy, almost slightly Gorguts-ish as well. Is very heavy. The production is a little muddy, but I prefer that to, thinner production. Like sometimes with bands that are quite technical like this, I find they'll thin out the production in order to make it or to make every single track much more or provide more clarity, give each and every single track more space. So I prefer what they've done here to the alternative, if that makes sense. But yeah, so far so good. We're going into full-blown jazzy avant-garde territory there, and again, I'm not hating it. Just one thing to say, having been, I guess, a more jokey, light-hearted band when you are young, there's nothing wrong with that. I said that, but I hope nobody thought that by saying that I was thumbing my nose at their music. There's plenty of bands that started off as more of a, not an outright joke, but you know what I mean, more kind of tongue-in-cheek with their use of humor. Blindfolded and Led to the Woods is a good example of that, and they have morphed into an absolutely fucking savage outfit. But this gets a thumbs up, for sure. Looking forward to hearing what the rest of the record sounds like. News that pissed me off no end. Faith No More gave us an update by way of Roddy Bottom, their keyboardist. He says, of the band's current state, I live in New York and work with my boyfriend in a band called Man on Man, and two awesome friends in a band called Crickets, and also sometimes the horror art project Nullcore Nasty Band. Faith No More is kind of on semi-permanent hiatus. My friends, I'm a big fan of Faith No More, and I had hoped to at least see them live one more time, but I don't know whether that is going to happen. They also mentioned in the article it's been almost a decade since Faith No More last performed a regular show, and the release of their most recent album, Sol Invictus. The band was supposed to tour again between 2020 and 2022, but the COVID pandemic and frontman Mike Patton's mental health problems prevented this from happening. While no official breakup of Faith No More has ever been announced, Roddy Bottom confirmed in a new post on Substack that they are on semi-permanent hiatus. Boo to that news. And I've got to say, that is one band where I'm not sure that situation is likely to change. With a lot of other bands, you can, set your clock to, if they break up 3-4 years from now, they'll get back together. I saw that Slayer have already started announcing reunion shows for 2025. I mean, that's no reunion. They're just touring again. And I will be willing to place a hefty wager on them putting out a new album in 2026. And I'm not mad at it either. I completely agree with everybody who says, why would you be pissed off at, having the opportunity to see Slayer play live again? I can't see why anyone would be, anyone who calls himself a Slayer fan shouldn't be complaining about that. I mean, if you are complaining about it, fuck you. But, yeah, I think when it comes to Faith No More, I suspect we may have seen the last of them. And if that's the case, I am very, very happy that I got to see them play live at least once. All right, Raging Speedhorn have joined forces with Spine Farm Records. Curiosity is what led me to check out this article. More so than anything else, I remember seeing Raging Speedhorn on my I was going to say first show, not my first show, my second big show after I moved to the UK. They opened for, who was it? I think it was Rammstein at the London Docklands Arena, and I absolutely hated them. So I'm curious to hear what they sound like nowadays, because I do happen to know a fair few people that rate their music very highly. So it says here, the Brits Raging Speedhorn are proud to announce that they have signed with Spine Farm Records and at the same time present us with a new single, Night Wolf. The band also announced that they'll be heading out across the UK and Ireland in March 2025 for a full headline tour with Kill the Lights as support. Let's hear what it sounds like. I mean, it's mostly pretty unremarkable stuff, save for the one secret weapon that they have up their sleeve. And actually, I think they use it really well on this track, and that is the fact that they've got two vocalists. I love two vocalists. I would strongly recommend to any band that has cause for or call to have two vocalists to deploy that method immediately. I think it looks fucking cool on stage. And I do remember that was the one thing that always stuck with me about them that was positive about the show. Like I said, I didn't enjoy the music at the time. But the two vocalists on stage, that interplay, I really enjoyed. I think the best use of that actually is Despised Icon. If you've ever had the pleasure of seeing that band play, you'll know exactly what I mean. When they do a track called Retina, it is just absolute fucking bedlam on stage. It will get even the most decrepit of you out of mosh retirement. But this is cool background music. I mean, it's not blowing my mind, but I do quite like it. There's just something about it that's charming. And as I said, I'm charmed by their dual vocalist approach. As a side note, Frank Reagan, their vocalist, I believe as well as their drummer, is in a band called Viking Skull, and them I do enjoy substantially more than I enjoy Raging Speedhorn. Viking Skull has got an album called Death, Gloom, Heartache, and Whiskey, which I absolutely fucking love. I've played it. I think I've played it on the podcast before. Possibly on a news rant, but there's a song on Death, Gloom, Heartache, and Whiskey called Hair of the Dog. Fucking genius. I mean, it's pure Motorhead worship, but absolutely phenomenal. Cavalera have confirmed shows in Australia. It says here Cavalera are pleased to announce that they have booked 6 new shows in Australia. Confirmed venues and dates are available via a flyer down under. I do not see Werewolves supporting them on that, which needs to change immediately. But I have been completely and utterly converted when it comes to Cavalera, thanks to these re-recordings. I have now seen that he said they don't want to re-record. I think he certainly ruled out Arise, Chaos AD, and Roots. I don't know whether or not the same was said about Beneath the Remains. But I know for many this is heresy, but I would be down with the Beneath the Remains re-recording, especially when I consider how fucking brilliant this Schizophrenia re-recording has been. I mean, I'm still not going to include it, I don't think, on my list of 2024's best because it's a re-recording. But had I not bound myself to that self-imposed rule, I may well have been tempted to do so. Next up, we have Aara out of Switzerland. My man Drew Goth and I listened to the previous Aara single, and we had mixed thoughts on it. He liked it more than I did, but it says here, Switzerland's atmospheric black metal band Aara have launched Senkrechte Welten, the second excerpt from their upcoming long player Eiger, due out on Debra Morty on December the 6th. Senkrechte Welten. Welten means world. Senkrechte, I'm not sure. I'll decipher that whilst we listen to the song. I like this, and I like it more as the song is getting on, is progressing. Maybe it's that bloody Drugoth, but I even find Fluss's vocals a little bit more tolerable than I have done on previous listens. A lot of things working very well here. I think the drummer is fucking magnificent. His name is Jay, also known as Joshu Kaiser. He's the drummer for Forgotten Tomb as well, or the current drummer, I should say, for Forgotten Tomb. That Forgotten Tomb record, Night Floating. By the way, correction, not the drummer, god damn it, he plays guitars in Forgotten Tomb. But anyway, that new Forgotten Tomb album, Night Floating, brilliant. Back to Aara, though, the drumming is superb. The melodies are excellent. Floss's vocals actually seem to really fit this song very, very well. I like the atmosphere to the song. Interestingly, there's something about this music that reminds me a little bit of Modern Rites, which is Berg, the main dude in the band, which is his other project and who I've raved about on the podcast previously. There's something about it that reminds me a bit of Modern Rites, which potentially is why I'm warming to it more. But you know, if this is the gateway to me becoming an Aara fan, so be it. I'm verging on giving this a top notch. Let's give it another 60 seconds and decide whether or not it's indeed worthy. Yes, hard as it may be to believe, I think I'm going to give this a top notch. It just works on every level, and I'm so impressed by the song. Actually, I may now go back and give all the other albums a listen, because now I'm sitting here thinking maybe I didn't give them a fair shake previously. And if nothing else, you certainly have to commend them for being as active as they've been. This band has put out a new album every single year since 2019. Fallen Alle Temple, that came out in 2019. In Argo Inai 2020. And then they brought out that Triad 1, 2, and 3 trilogy between 2021 and 2023. Regardless, I will go back and listen to those, but this is very good. Very, very good indeed. And as I said, you may just well have witnessed my conversion from Aara naysayer, even we could argue Aara detractor, into a full-bore Aara fan. Okay, let's check out something new. Havok have released a surprise EP. Today, the American thrashers Havok surprised us with a brand new EP release, New Eyes. The new music effort, which was mastered and mixed by Mark Lewis, consists of 2 new songs and 2 covers. You can check out a video for the new one titled Death is an Illusion. Not bad. Good bass sound, really clear bass sound, actually. Overall production, I think, very good. Nice hook in that chorus. Nice little bit of gang vocals. They could have been more pronounced if they wanted to warm the cockles of my heart even more. But I don't think it's bad at all. Interestingly, they cover Eye of the Beholder by Metallica on this EP. The other cover, for those wondering, is Commotion by Creedence Clearwater Revival, a band who I read this morning. Apparently Keith Richards absolutely hates. Don't know why. Creedence is fucking great. So is Eye of the Beholder, and I have no idea why Metallica doesn't play that live more often than they do. Reportedly, Lars is not a fan of that song at all, which makes me sad, because he does appear to be a fan of some of the newer material, like Moth into a Flame, which, if I never heard ever again, would make me very happy indeed. But back to this song, it's not top-notch worthy, but considering the fact that their last couple of albums have fallen on some pretty rocky ground, critically speaking, the average review for their previous record, V, that came out in 2020 is 58%, and that's out of 9 reviews. And Conformicide, that came out in in 2017, out of 16 reviews, scored a whopping 54%. V, the first review on V says simply, why, just why, and gives it 15%. But anyway, don't know what happened with them, why people hate those albums so much. If I had to judge just by that song, I would say it's not bad at all. Brujeria have unveiled a European touring plan. Interesting news. Mexican grindcore maniacs Brujeria have announced the dates for the Europa Rigor Mortis Part 1 2025 European tour. The trek will take place 4 months after the band's frontman, lyricist, leader, and co-founder John Lepe, a.k.a. Juan Brujo, died at the age of 61, and 6 months after longtime vocalist and samplist, I'm going to wreck his name, so I'm just going to say Pinche Peach, you guys know what I'm talking about, passed away at the age of 57. I know they've got a vocalist that's going to stand in. Can't exactly remember who it was, but I'm sure I read it somewhere. Maybe when we head over to Blabbermouth, we'll be able to see. But playing a number of shows, including at the Paris International Tattoo Convention, which I think is would be a cool show for them. If they play in the UK, I'll definitely make a point of going to see them. I've mentioned many times before, Brujeria is some of the most fun you can have at a show, hands down. They are fucking superb. Right, let's move on, my friends. News reaches us of Crippled Black Phoenix delivering a new single. It says here, as part of their upcoming double album release due out on November the 29th via Season of Mist, Crippled Black Phoenix offer in listening a brand new song called 444. You guys know my thoughts on this band. Very big fan. Really loved the previous single. So let's hear what this one sounds like.
What are you doing?
I'm drinking wine and eating cheese and catching some rays, you know.
What's happening? Then why the hell aren't you up there helping them?
Definitely an antisocial type. That's my other dog imitation.
Right, look, I know there will be split opinions about this, but I'm just going to come out and say this. That gets multiple top notches. I was upfront by saying from the very beginning, I'm a big fan of this band, and this is magnificent. I've loved the new era of Crippled Black Phoenix, probably most of any era in their career. That era, for anybody who follows the band, started in 2020. Really everything that they've put out since, to me, has been borderline perfect. And what I'm hearing on this record so far is just absolutely superb. I would really suggest if you don't know this band and you want to know where to start, I would say you won't go wrong with any of the last three records. The Great Escape, that came out in 2018, Alan Gas, that came out in 2020, and Banefire, that came out in 2022. All three of those are phenomenal. And what I love about this song is the ambition. This is such a sprawling, lush recording. It is, it's progressive, but it's also powerful. It's catchy. That's kind of been the hallmark of this band for those last three records, the last two in particular. And they just seem to be getting better and better at it. Like, ever since Justin Greaves took a firmer hand in what this band is doing, they have been going from strength to strength, as far as I'm concerned. So, magnificent, in my opinion. And I know not everybody is going to agree with me. That's okay. I personally think this is fucking fantastic. I'm so severely tempted to pause this news rant and switch on my hi-fi and listen to that song in its entirety, because it sounds like something that's tailor-made for hi-fi. Just absolutely fucking love it. 10 out of 10, beyond top notch. By the way, on the topic of hi-fi, that Diablo 333, it's a coming. We're basically waiting for the national shortage of bamboo to be cleared up so that they can make my new hi-fi rack. The 333 won't fit in on the existing hi-fi rack that I've got. So I'm not a particularly patient man, so it's pissing me off some, but I'll keep you guys posted on when that happens. In the meantime, Veilburner unleash a new track. 2 weeks prior to the release of their next studio record, The Duality of Decapitation and Wisdom, experimental black and death metal band Veilburner present another new track and preview. Woe ye who build these crosses are those who will serve us death. We will listen to this very shortly. And shortly thereafter, I'll make an exciting little announcement, which you may potentially be able to guess. I have conceded previously that Veilburner is an acquired taste, but I will say once again, I love this band. And it should come as no surprise that I will be having them on the podcast. I had them on previously when they put out their self-titled album back in 2022. I actually recorded this conversation with them yesterday, and we are now talking. I am talking to you, recording this on the 4th of November. So, yeah, I recorded this a day ago. It'll probably be episode 251, and if you're a Veilburner fan, we're going through every single song top to bottom intentionally, because the subjects, the themes, the concepts that Chris Shepherd, the main man in, or behind the lyrics at least, in Veilburner comes up with is fucking crazy. It's so fascinating and it's so complex. There's so much thought that goes into it. I thought it would be nice to have some director's commentary to accompany your listen, if you're a fan, of course. Will that song that we just heard change your mind if you weren't a fan? Probably not. And I think they're pretty comfortable with that, as am I. I think they're fucking great. All right, let's take a quick spin past. Let's look at Metal Injection first, and after that we can take a quick gander at the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. There has been loads of drama with As I Lay Crying. I kind of made a passing comment about it last week, but it says here, As I Lay Crying is currently vocalist Tim Lambesis, as everyone else has quit the band within the past month. First to leave, in the public eye anyway, was bassist Ryan Neff with barely any statement. Then their tour manager quit amidst rumors that As I Lay Crying's European tour was cancelled. Guitarist then Ken Susi quit the band, saying his personal morals have been recently tested to a breaking point. Followed immediately by drummer Nick Pierce quitting and saying he needs to distance himself from the band in an effort to retain his personal health and integrity. There's going to be some fucking wild news that breaks about this band in the next week or two. I have no doubt about that. Exactly what that will be, I've no idea. But everyone seems to be getting away from old Timmy Boy, like he's contracted a case of fucking highly contagious leprosy. But anyway, in his words, hi everyone, I needed some time to process all that has happened recently with As I Lay Crying. As I reflect, I certainly agree that there was an unhealthy environment that made leaving for a new tour with the previous lineup unrealistic. It had become difficult to figure out even the smallest details, and I admit that I can stick strong to my vision for the future of As I Lay Crying, even when others think that it should go another direction. I also admit that my steroid addiction has gotten out of hand and made me violent towards my fellow band members. That part is, I just ad-libbed that one, but he goes on to say, it saddens me to think about the behaviors, communication, and patterns of interaction that led to the tour cancellation. Phil and I no longer saw eye to eye personally, creatively, or financially. Discussions during this time prompted his decision to depart first, with each of the touring members deciding to leave shortly after, as they were not interested in going on without him. Unfortunately, that wasn't the order in which everything was made public, as some statements were rushed out during a chaotic time in response to rumors. Blah, blah, fucking blah. Band stinks, number one, and secondly, like I said, it is just a matter of time before some fucked up news comes out about this band. I've got no doubt about that. These guys, when they left, were cryptic in their response, but they certainly didn't say, as you would imagine that any band would. We were being ripped off, financially, or whatever the case may be. Something shady was going on there. Possessed, Jeff Baccara has broken his femur due to have surgery. All the best to Jeff for a very quick recovery. Lamp of Murmur working on their 4th album. It says here, black metal phenomenon Lamp of Murmur just got off tour with Black Braid and Dotzerit, and has revealed that they're working on a new album. Lamp of Murmur is currently working on the follow-up to 2023's Saturnian Bloodstorm, alongside debut albums and demos from associated projects Magus Lord, Thorin Comogon, and Silent Thunder. Hadn't paid any attention to any of those other bands, but I do like me some Lamp of Murmur. We've, as a matter of fact, praised Lamp of Murmur on this very podcast. They played at the Fortress Festival this year. Unfortunately, a band I didn't manage to see because I was interviewing somebody at the time. Rick Rubin explains the unique production behind Slayer's Reign in Blood. I was more subtractive than additive, getting back to the essence. We've got an interview here, so let's listen to a quick extract.
Yeah.
But super narrow.
Right.
And I remember Andy came over and I played him a few different records, AC/DC, Metallica, and I had a theory. Now this is not based on being a musician. This is not based on being a technical person. This is based on being a fan and theoretical, just thoughts. So when I hear very fast music like Metallica, and the sounds are big sounds like on rock records, the whole thing gets blurry and you can't really hear it.
Talking about fast tempos, right?
Fast tempos.
Fast tempos,
yeah, if you're playing, if the music is fast,
yeah,
and if the sounds are big,
yeah,
there's not enough space for those big sounds to live next to happen next to each other.
Right.
There's no punctuation.
Yes.
It's just, it becomes a blur. And I played him a Metallica record as an example of what I thought was wrong. And I said, would it be possible to record in such a way that it was hard sounding, but everything was short because it's fast and we want there to be this, I didn't want it to be a blur of bass. I wanted it to be a pulse, to really feel the pulse. And he said, I think we can do that.
All right, he's talking about Metallica there, obviously, and I can't be bothered to scratch my way through the entire episode to find where they talk about Slayer. Either way, you know, Rick and Slayer had a relatively illustrious breakup. I think Slayer accused him of leaving everything to Greg Fidelman or whatever the fuck his surname is, to ruin the sound. One thing that I will say about Rick, though, he's got a beautiful voice. I actually genuinely could sit there listening to him for a while. He sounds very, he's got a great radio voice. His podcast, Tetragrammaton, is actually not bad either. Morbid Angel drops off the Devastation on the Nation tour, replaced by I Am Morbid. A lot of people pointed out the irony of the fact that you've got people online bleating about I Am Morbid being a tribute band, but they actually have more original members in them, or at least bordering on original members, than Morbid Angel themselves. The other thing that I had read is that this is apparently due to some potential issues that Trey might have related to the interview that he did, or that it was recorded in New York. There was that interview that he did on the street. You know, guy interviewed him. The interview itself is it's all right, but you can tell he's a bit out of it. And I don't know whether it's, you know, medication or what's going on, but, you know, he just clearly doesn't seem to be in the best place. Probably physically, I don't know whether it's financially, whatever the case may be, but things just, they don't seem to be connecting for him quite as well. So, you know, my thoughts go out to him, because he really is, in my view, one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Somebody with such an extraordinarily unique style and sound. He needs to go out like a hero. When he hangs up that guitar, he needs to go out like a hero. And it would be an absolute shame if he just becomes another one of, you know, metal music or rock music's tragedies. So That's my 2 cents. But either way, I mean, I actually don't think that anybody who's going to be watching the devastation on the Nation tour is getting a bad deal, because by all accounts, you get to hear the best era of Morbid Angel delivered by 2 of the dudes that were there for it. All right, we are over to the Democrats Guide to Rock Music. Let's just see if there's anything here worth checking out. Mostly, as you can imagine, complete shite. There's a gameplay overview of Metallica Remastered Pinball. I have no idea why people get so fucking wrapped up in pinball. I mean, I may speak like a complete ignoramus here, but I mean, you've got 2 paddles and a ball and some bullshit happening on a table. How much more variation can there possibly be? Just because you've got, you know, the logo of your favorite band on it doesn't mean you need to get all nerdy about it. But I, you know, again, I'm happy to be corrected. I just don't really see anything. I don't see anything about pinball that, you know, could have dramatically evolved over the course of the last, 20 years. Over the last 20 years since I was banging. Phil Anselmo's personal haunted house for Halloween video is up. I actually watched a little bit of that. Very cool what he does for Halloween. And I do hope, by the way, having said that, that all of the Legion had themselves an absolutely brilliant Halloween. As a matter of fact, I think scanning through this, it doesn't really look like anything else for us to read. So I thought I would share this little nugget with you by way of us closing off. Now, I'm going to keep the names of those involved confidential because I don't want to embarrass anybody in public. But long story short, a friend of mine and I have known a particular person from the mean streets of Bloemfontein for a long time. My friend has known him for a far longer time than I have. We noticed that he had removed us both from Facebook. I didn't give a shit. My friend messaged him to ask why he had been deleted, and this is the response that he got. Hi, yes, I deleted loads of people from my Facebook because it doesn't seem right friending people who hate and diss Jesus. I met Satan and I know him really well, and what he did to me and my family over the years is just overwhelming, horrific. Anyway, I put my dad and Jesus first. I'm assuming by dad he means God, but anyway. I put my dad and Jesus first. I love my enemies, but once you declare you walk with Satan, there is no hope to be saved. It's pretty hard to stay friends with that person. My heart broke over you, and I can't believe you chose to live in an eternal fire eternally. It's just insane. Do you actually understand the hell you chose for yourself, and Satan is laughing all the way? He nailed you good and solid, man. It's a shame, dude. So anyway, he can go fuck himself. In the meantime, you, whatever it is that you're doing, should stay safe, stay healthy. We're going to play out with a band that'll have a couple of folks, probably of the same mindset, weeping and sobbing for their mamas and for their dad. The band, of course, is Horna off their fantastic new album. I will see you bad motherfuckers again next week.